Well, moving on to the next topic then. So engaging stakeholders, and again, things that you've seen that have worked well in terms of engaging your stakeholder landscape.
Yeah, I think it'd be amiss to say, I think without that senior leadership sponsorship, it's a struggle. So I think you need to have a CHRO and HR leadership team as a minimum who are behind analytics, see the value in data, etc. Where it's worked well for me is also picking off one or two senior business leaders who are clearly passionate, are data savvy, see the value in it, and equally aren't adverse to engaging with HR. So kind of picking those guys and girls off early in terms of getting them on board of the vision, and almost using them as a bit of a test bed, a bit of a sounding board in terms of what is the right analytics to drive or solve a particular problem for them as well. So I think that's kind of number one around it. I think equally kind of linked to that and partly linked to the last point around value and impact. I think being able to really connect early around the financial benefit or the outcomes that you're going to drive through whatever analytics you're doing, whether it's around recruitment activity, whether it's productivity, whether it's attrition, being able to put a bottom line number on it, and really identify that and make the connections, I think again has proved successful kind of in the past as well. I think tactically there's always a little bit of kind of with those stakeholders, making them look good, and playing those tactics of going, well, okay, well, where can we support that narrative in the right way as well, and then kind of lastly for me, I think it's definitely around sort of starting small and scaling. I think particularly in large multinational organizations, if you're trying to do something at scale from day one with matrix complex nuances across geographies, etc., it becomes difficult to really embed things and get the buy-in. So starting small and scaling at pace is certainly the strategies we've taken in the past.
Yeah, I absolutely, and maybe that's a natural segue into, so obviously sort of trying to go big bang with these things is one area perhaps to be a little bit cautious about, but are there other areas in terms of sort of working with stakeholders where a bit of caution and sense, perhaps, that lessons you've learned on the way, Olly?
Yeah, I think sort of trying to solve the wrong question or the wrong problem. So you might have buy-in from a stakeholder who's very passionate about a particular issue or challenge, but maybe deep down that actually either it isn't really a problem and it's just they've got a particular problem in their team, or equally from an impact, from an outcome perspective, you know that you're not going to be able to kind of drive it. So I think it's trying to have those difficult conversations with the stakeholders and really challenge back around, well, is that really the right question we should be looking at here, and how do we define the problem statement in the right way? So I think getting that balance right with the desire to engage and get senior folks on board with this, there's always a desire to go yes, but is that really the right answer always? I think the other kind of, I guess, lesson I'm sort of reflecting on is also when we're building analytical solutions or products or tools or even analysis, making sure that they are really there for demand. We might think they're great from an analytical perspective and they're really smart or they look great, but actually, is it really solving a problem? Is it really the demand that's there, and you end up pushing uphill on something you think is absolutely wonderful and is going to change the world, but actually, is there really a demand for it and a need for it as well? And then lastly, I think pragmatic and practical is the other element. Again, I think there's a natural nuance in analytics teams to go more technical and go to data science, to go to more sophisticated methods, when actually something very simple could solve the problem and can solve the need as well. So I think that's the other piece to be conscious of around it as well, because again, often stakeholders aren't often in the detail and aren't necessarily clearly as data savvy as the analytical teams as well.
No, those are all really great points. And I suppose one of the things I'm wondering about is, do you find and obviously it's different in different organizations, that perhaps there's, are you working with other analytical parts of the business? I suppose I'm thinking things like finance and sales and operations. Are you collaborating together to produce solutions?
Yeah, I think certainly finance as a stakeholder is critical. In all the roles I've had, I've looked to seek out that relationship early on, to establish the credibility, understand the pain points, and look to solve the perennial problem of HR and finance headcount data not stacking up right. I think everyone on the call who's interested in this will be able to resonate with that one. But it's often the example given as the problem. But what I found is there's often many other synergies around programs that finance are working on, whether that's kind of around the cost base of the workforce, cost base of location strategies, those kind of things, for example, where often people analytics can play a big role and can add a lot more color in terms of what's actually happening within the workforce, rather than seeing it purely from a numbers perspective. Not to offend any finance colleagues, but so I think that is more around collaboration to gain credibility and to gain the profile across the organization. Where we've possibly partnered more is more with, particularly at Experian, where we had data science teams who were doing data science, but on credit data from consumer data, for example, and working much more closely with them around learning in terms of clearly the methodologies and the approaches that we use from that perspective, but also getting their input around what we're doing and challenging us as well. So I think seeking out where that expertise from an analytical data science perspective exists in the organization, and pretty much every organization nowadays has got that in some shape or form. So again, that would be one that would look to seek out early on.
No, that's excellent. And I'm just wondering, again, this is a bit of a trend we're sort of seeing in our community at the moment, is how much you're getting involved in. I guess if we were to go 10 years back, a lot of people analytics was focused on people analytics to some degree aimed at business as usual. So how does the business operate today? And let's understand the workforce and the people in the business better than we do today. It does seem, though, that increasingly people are also involved in, what's the future of the business going to be? What's the future of the workforce? And how do we help our people to become what the business needs in the future? Where's sort of PMI on that, and what are you seeing in that space?
Yeah, it's kind of up there as one of the top 3 or 4 things that are the front of mind for the organisation. PMI as an organisation is going through a significant change in terms of what it does ultimately, and therefore the skills and capabilities that we need are going to need to change and have already changed fundamentally already, but that's going to continue. I think also the role of technology and AI in particularly some of our manufacturing operational parts of the organisation is going to clearly have an impact from a workforce perspective as well. So at the moment we're actively working on both of those components in terms of one, understanding kind of what does that profile look like over time based on different factors that are going to affect us. So whether that's technology, whether that's skills, whether that's changes in terms of location strategy, those kind of elements as well, and start to map out over the next kind of 5 to 10 years, what does that profile look like and how can we get ahead of it? So I think that's one component. I think the other one is probably more into the more traditional strategic kind of workforce planning and skills and capability bucket, which again is probably one of those holy grails out there of not many organizations have really got, I would say, true strategic workforce planning, well-oiled machine linked to finance, but also really bringing the color from a skills and capabilities perspective. That again is front of mind for us around how do we do that and do that in the right way. I think the challenge in that space, which I've observed within other organizations, is the data from a skills and capabilities perspective. So it's not for want of a workforce planning process or a technology that can capture that data. It's about the physical. Do we even know what skills, capabilities we've got within the workforce today? Do we really have definition of what we need in the future? And getting business leaders to really define that and be clear, not 6 months down the line, but 3 years down the line, what does that really look like? And I think those two components are the things that really stop organizations making headway on it. I'm not sure what the answer to it is, but I think constantly kind of asking those questions and challenging the business to get more precise in terms of what's required, aligned to the strategy is the only way to go. And then obviously capturing the data just needs the right processes and tech in place to do that.
Yeah, great. And I suppose it's a bit of a discuss point, this really, which is, you know, at least it's on the agenda for you, because I wonder if you were trying to have that sort of, you know, future of the business skills and competencies, you were trying to have that 10 years ago, you might have struggled even to get it put on the agenda, right? So at least there's some progress in that sense.
Definitely, yeah. I think clearly those organizations which are maybe more stable and more traditional, I guess, in terms of what they're focusing on, it's going to be a more challenging area. I think there won't be there'll still be the kind of the pull from the external sort of trends of going future of workforce, and 25% of skills are not going to, or jobs aren't going to exist in however many years it is this week on it. But I think those organizations which are truly going through transformation and change of what they're doing and have that vision, there needs to be a plan in place sooner rather than later.
Perfect. Very good. Excellent.